As some of you have known in the past few BBCs that I've been giving, I've been exploring compassionate leadership. What it is, what are some of the obstacles to cultivating it, and what are some of the Dharma antidotes to get us back on track when we've gone into a ditch somewhere. I want to qualify before I do a little bit of my sharing today that I think almost every one of us sometime in our lives are going to take this role. Whether we're a head of a household or a head of state, somewhere along the line, our qualities, our motivation, our level of responsibility, our passion, and our love for something is going to put us into a role where we're going to be facilitating, encouraging, directing, negotiating, inspiring groups of people to attain some sort of vision, to attain some sort of goal. And so this is, even though this is put in the context of leadership per se, I think these are qualities that all human beings would be well worthwhile to cultivate. And so how I started off on this is I found, when I was thinking, I put in compassionate leadership into the internet, and I came up with an article, a speech by Pope Francis about 2 years ago, that he gave to the Curia in the Vatican. So we're talking about his team, which was all the cardinals in Rome. Right? And I don't know particularly what precipitated this speech, except that it's an extremely direct, forceful speech on the 15 diseases of leadership, on how leadership can go astray. Some of them he offered antidotes for, and some of them he didn't. So then I kind of go off of some of the ideas that he had. So I've done about 6 of these, and I wanted to go yet to another one of his, quote, diseases of leadership. And also to know that it's not like I'm not taking this on because, whatever role I have here at the Abbey, I've got some responsibilities, some places where I facilitate, and I'm not going to want to continue to look out into the world and say, which of the leaders in our world are not doing this? Which leaders of this world are not compassionate, that need to be looking at these diseases of leadership and to sort of straighten things out? I really try to take this back into my own practice and my own relationship to people here that I support and encourage in whatever leadership role I have. So I wanted to just put this in context, that I'm not just throwing it out there as a political statement about who's a good leader and who isn't. So this is one of the diseases. It's called the disease of a downcast face. You see this disease in those glum and dour persons who think that to be serious, you have to put on a face of melancholy and severity and treat others, especially those we consider our inferiors, with rigor, brusqueness, and arrogance. In fact, a show of severity and sterile pessimism are frequently symptoms of fear and insecurity. A leader must make an effort to be courteous, serene, enthusiastic, joyful, a person who transmits joy everywhere he or she goes. A happy heart radiates an infectious joy. So a leader should never lose that joyous, harmonious, and even self-deprecating spirit which makes people amiable even in difficult situations. How beneficial is a good sense of humor. Right? So knowing that I have a tendency towards grumpiness at times in my leadership roles here, I decided that I wanted to address this full on. So I came up with a few points. The first one that I came to understand is that if I get into, because nobody wants to work, volunteer, or team up with a grouch. When you've got a rain cloud over your head, chances are you're not only raining on yourself, but you're raining on everybody who's, trying to be with you and support you. So one of the first things that I found in my own thinking about this is that I go to that place that says, well, where is this fear, this kind of gloomy, dour, grumpy mind coming from anyway? What's going on, and why is it happening? So sometimes I find that it's the laziness of discouragement. Okay, so I've got myself, or looking at leadership in general, it's too hard. People are feeling overwhelmed in leadership roles. People aren't doing what I asked them to do. I don't have the capacity. There's a fear of failure. There may be an insecurity of not having the capacity or the capability of doing this leadership role with a group of people. And so, in a response to that, the discouragement, we get a little bit tighter. We start barking at people. I can be a barker. be brusque, be irritated, be impatient with the way things are going. So the laziness of discouragement and just this fear of failure and this insecurity of not being up to the task. So my second thing was, okay, so how do we antidote this, or how do we change this, this struggle around the fear of it? And so what I realized is that one of the things when I get into this glum and grouchy mood is that I am forgetting one of the most fundamental truths that I must never, ever, ever forget. This is samsara. Okay? This is kind of the nature of the beast. And whether it's me, whether it's children, peers, employees, co-workers, guests, Congress, we all have bodies and minds under the control of afflictions and polluted karma. And if I can get back to that deep understanding when I'm in the middle of just sort of tanking on my joyous effort, it brings my mind up to a place of getting a reality check on the nature of how things are going. So what I end up doing is looking at the fact that even though I think most folks in leadership positions have very good intentions in the beginning, I think there's a passion there's a wish to contribute, there's talents and skills that come into that role. But I also think that underneath that, and I've seen it in myself, is that whenever I take on a new project, and also a new president or a new chairman of the board, that this time it's going to be different. I'm going to have it my way. It's going to go smoothly. People are going to collaborate. We're all going to brainstorm, and this thing is going to fly. So one of the misperceptions of, once again, is forgetting that this is samsara, and along with samsara come obstacles. And if that can be put into the context of a leadership role, it brings a whole lot of compassion, not to just oneself, but to all the people that have agreed to come on board to support the vision unfolding. The other one that I thought that was really helpful, besides just looking at this is samsara, this is the nature of the beast, and let's get real about it and come to it realistically, is to realize that despite that we have been given a precious human life. I have found one of the most powerful antidotes to my laziness of discouragement. It says, you have had a remarkable life basically put on a silver platter for you this life. You've got all the 18 freedoms and fortunes. You have your wits about you, you've got your physical capacity, you've got interest in the Dharma, you haven't committed any outrageous, heinous crimes, at least in this life. The Buddha's teachings are pure and present in the world. You've got qualified Mahayana teachers, you've got support. All the freedoms and fortunes kind of line themselves out. And it's like, no matter what roles we take on, we have got the tools that we need. And one of the things that I wanted to be clear about in my own mind is that I could use those two antidotes simultaneously. I can look at the reality, the fact that we're in samsara and we're under the control of afflictions and polluted karma, and I have a precious human life, and they are not contradictory. I don't have to give up one or forget about one for the other one to be able to use as an antidote to this grumpy, grouchy, dour, barking kind of leadership mind that we can get into. And the way in which I see that is that to use samsara and this precious human life as this incredibly fertile ground for three things. I know there's more things that we can cultivate using this understanding of the nature of cyclic existence and the fact that we have this precious human life is three things that I believe we can use them for. First of all, in a leadership role, is it necessitates us growing our good qualities. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is an opportunity. This is fertile ground to be able to cultivate our generosity, our ethical conduct, our joyous effort, our concentration, our wisdom, our skillful means. Being in a leadership role where we're not only responsible for our own minds, but we're responsible for captaining and navigating the ship, is to be able to grow our good qualities because people are really depending on us. That's the first one. Second one is How many times a day do we get to transform our minds? Transform, turn, 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 turn. No matter how much, it doesn't have to be a full turn, but when an obstacle arises, how can we look at it with a fresh perspective? Knowing that it's cyclic existence and knowing that I have a lot of pretty good darn tools to help me. And thirdly, which I found kind of an interesting piece in a leadership role, and this can be taken for anybody, whether you're head of household or head of state, is that in facilitating as a leader, you are inviting the purification of all destructive karma that you have ever had in relationship to groups. You know, we have the purification practice that we do every day here at the Abbey, and it's to purify our relationship to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and it's our purifying relationships to sentient beings. When you're in a leadership role, and you have not just yourself having the karma right, but you have a group of people that you are facilitating, your destructive karma on any time that, this is my personal deep think, is that whatever negative destructive karma that I have ever created in oppressing people, submitting them to my will, grandstanding, self-centeredness, threatening them, dismissing them, whatever I've done in a group where I have been a leader, whether it's been some high and mighty royalty or somebody down in the trenches, that karma is going to ripen, and we're inviting it in a leadership role for that to ripen. And what an opportunity to let that happen, to use the antidotes necessary to counteract that, and to just be done with it. Because we've all been monarchs before. We've all been heads of state. We've all been parents. We've all been tribal elders. We've all been who knows what. But when you're in a leadership role, you've got a group of people that are going to help bring that destructive karma up, as well as the virtuous stuff. I'm not discounting that, but to not be surprised when you take on a leadership role that you're going to be having some pretty good karma ripening. And it's just fertile ground, fertile ground. So as far as the dour, grumpy, barking persona, to be a compassionate leader, there's a lot of tools, and I've shared them before in the BBC's, the antidotes, but this one is to see the precious human life and to see what we've got to work with and to really take on the role of leadership, not only just for ourselves, but for all the people who are involved, and by extension, that really does affect the state of the world. So if we want to create peace in a chaotic world, I think being compassionate leaders is one of the main causes in which we can do that.